Howdy, gang, and welcome once again to the Duct Tape Studios. I'm Jeff McAleer, your host here at the Gaming Gang channel. Thanks for joining me once again. Today, I am going to dive on in for a first look and page through of Heroes and Hardships from the Earl of Fife Games. This is written by Jason Duff, and the 248-page hardcover is available now. It carries an MSRP of $54.99, or you can grab just the PDF alone over at DriveThruRPG for $24.99. Let's swing on over to the other camera because here I've got Heroes and Hardships. Do want to mention before I dive on in for the page through, the fine folks over at Earl of Fife Games were kind enough to provide me with this review copy, but neither I nor anyone else affiliated with the Gaming Gang has received any other sort of compensation for me to share this coverage with you. These days, it's important that you know that. We're also not going to look at each and every page inside this volume, but I do want to give you a good feel for what you're going to find in the core rulebook for Heroes and Hardships. Now, I noticed on the back of the book, it's pretty much just telling us what's inside this volume. So I'm not going to read that because we're going to take a peek. So let's jump on in. And we've got quite a few illustrators here. So let's give them a little bit of credit. We'll tell you the paper stock, very nice. Nice, thick paper stock here for the pages. So I really don't know anything about Heroes and Hardships outside of it being a setting agnostic universal role playing game. And it uses a D10 dice pool. Outside of that, not much that I know. I believe there's different power levels as well. So if you're looking to tackle, say, a fantasy role playing game, you can make your characters a bit squishier, or you can make it more epic and have them be really powerful characters right off the bat. So it looks as if we've got a breakdown into the system, generating characters, skills and abilities, ancestries and flaws, combat, which looks like we've got about 45 pages devoted to combat, vehicles, magic, and I do believe there are two types of magic, one for, say, fantasy role-playing games, and the other is more along the lines for superhero games. We've got equipment, and then we've got adversaries. Do want to mention, as a bonus, we are also going to take a quick peek into the GM's Guide, Volume 1. So we'll take a peek at this when I finish up with the core rulebook. So what is Heroes and Hardships? Heroes and Hardships is a universal role-playing game that allows game masters to craft any story they desire. This book contains many options to facilitate diverse styles and genres of play. GMs can easily create standard fantasy, sci-fi, modern, historical, and superhero games, and readily mix and match all of these genres in any way they see fit. As far as a system overview, in Heroes and Hardships, you will roll a number of dice based on the combination of your character's attributes and skill. From that roll, you will keep a number of dice equal to your character's attribute score. Players will compare the total of those dice to either a static target number, often referred to as a TN, or an opposed roll's total. You may have modifiers that add or subtract to the total of your roll, add dice to your dice pool, or add to the target number of the roll. Once you make your calculations, you compare results to your TN or opposed roll total. If they meet or exceed that number, then you succeed. If not, you fail. I will mention that I kind of get the impression that this is probably a crunchier system than average. Now, I'm not going to say that you're looking at like a GURPS level of complexity or anything along those lines, but I would take a guess that this is going to be far crunchier than, say, a storytelling sort of game. So we've got our character creation. This is a unique combat system. Heroes and Hardships attempts to blend realism within the game. Consider combat. The concept of waiting your turn to perform an action is unrealistic. Combatants perform actions, and those actions take time to complete. Once they complete an action, then they do something else. The order of those, or I should say, order of these actions depends on the length of time of each action. So it's a roll and keep. So it looks like you're going to roll a number of dice equal to your attribute as well as your skill level. And it is showing our different power levels. So power level 1 is gritty and realistic. Power level 2 has great powers and can affect your surroundings to a great degree. And power level 3, great gifts of power are bestowed to player characters that utterly dwarf lesser creatures. The stakes are galactic and world shattering. So that's kind of cool. It allows you to kind of custom craft the power level. So it's showing different target numbers based on the power level. We have exploding dice. So when you roll a 10, it says on a skill check, that die is said to explode. When a die explodes, player rolls again, adds that extra die to that total already rolled. If that die is a 10, you're going to continue to roll until the die is not a 10. So that's kind of cool. I'm used to systems that have exploding dice. Although I'm kind of curious, those exploding dice would probably count as one die, because as we saw, it was discussing that you get to keep as many dice as your attribute score. So I would take a guess that exploding die only counts as one, regardless of what that total ends up being. So as far as generating your character, as far as attribute generation, we have either a roll method or a pick method. So there might be a buy system. So we've got our attribute generation based on power level. So we've got from 1 to 6. If it's power level 1, highest is 4, or 5, or 6. And it looks like you get a free attribute point. Yeah, it looks like there's quite a bit going on in this game. So rather than having like a range of, like, say, 3 to 18 for your attributes, you're looking at 1 to possibly 6, depending on what you're looking at for your power level. So, what are our attributes? I'm just kind of curious. Did I skip that somehow? Did I miss that? I did. Oh, wow. So, it's got quite a few attributes. So, we've got physical attributes: strength, agility, dexterity, and endurance. Mental attributes: intelligence, knowledge, senses, and willpower, as well as social attributes: presence, empathy, communications, and influence. And then we have fate. In Heroes and Hardships, an optional attribute called fate can be used. Fate should be used in combination with high powered and mythical campaigns. Both traditional magic and superpowers require the fate attribute. Fate can also be used to simulate luck or chance in other more mundane settings. Use of fate is determined by the GM. So I think just the fact that we've got 12 attributes with a possible 13 attributes also leads me to believe that this is probably a bit more complex as far as system, as opposed to many role playing games out there. Not to say that there's a problem with that, because a lot of people enjoy a good amount of complexity. So, discussing skills. So, it looks as if you purchase skill ranks, and they are broken down by physical, mental, social, and fate. It appears that you're going to add up your attributes, and that's going to give you the number of ranks or the points you'll use to purchase those ranks. So we have physical, mental, and social skills as well as fate skills. So this is an example of some of our skills. Strength skills, athletics, hand to hand, agility skills, dodge, ride, stealth, dexterity skills. Oh, so we're actually breaking these skills further down into their attributes as opposed to physical and mental, social. We are actually breaking the skills down into the actual attribute. So we've got empathy, communication. Then it says we've got abilities. So abilities are special techniques, training, and aptitudes that any character may possess. Abilities are split into 5 groups that mimic attributes in most cases. There are physical abilities, mental abilities, social abilities, general abilities, and fate abilities. Okay. And then it looks like we've got a lot of abilities. So we've got ambidextrous, defensive, grappler, grit, a couple of levels of lethal weapon, hardy, hard to hit, weapon master, snapshot, sniper. Then we got mental abilities. Wow, there's a lot going on here. But I will point out that the actual explanation of each of these abilities is pretty short. So, like a paragraph or so. Okay, so just taking a peek through. The artwork's pretty nice. So, what is, so we've got ancestry. So, we've got different fantasy species like halflings, elves, dwarves. Science fiction, we've got the Greys, interlopers. Then we have ancestry traits such as attuned, brave, cyborg, innate power, natural armor. Hmm. All right. And then we got flaws. Jeez. This is going to be relatively detailed character generation. All right. And it looks like the flaws are broken down by physical, mental. So here we've got fate flaws, general flaws. All right, so here we've got combat. Now, combat seemed pretty unique because as we saw early on, it's saying that it's based on how long something is going to take. So we do have initiative. We have a combat track. So we're tracking APs. Are those action points? Possibly. Heroes and Hardships uses the same basic system in combat that it does with all other skill checks. Characters will form dice pools, apply benefits and hardships, add pre and post roll modifiers, and determine levels of success. There are more details when combat occurs, but the basic premise of rolling is the same. In Heroes and Hardships, there are no hit points. The main factor of determining characters' health are injuries and wounds. Heroes and Hardships does not use a combat round concept. As you read the rules of combat, think of combat as a line. Characters will be moved along the line with each action they commit, taking a certain amount of, yes, APs are action points. These APs represent an abstract amount of time. If you'd like to measure time in combat, consider each AP to take 1 second to complete. So we've got an AP tracker, we've got melee combat, hit locations, defending, so you can take defensive actions. We've got ranged combat. 'Tis but a flesh wound. There is a lot of detail to this. We've got mental combat. So we've got a wound and injury summary. So we've got kind of a flow chart there. Wound effects, wounds severity, superficial, moderate, terrible. It's a terrible wound. Healing. So we've got healing rolls. Combat actions. So attack, ranged or melee, general, helper, mental, movement, reactive. Then we've got various different offensive actions, and it's telling us how many action points these take. Just kind of jumping through here. There's a nice spread. Different defensive actions, block or parry, dispel, disengage. So we've got some optional rules as well. So multiple engagements. So it says an engaged defender may be engaged by up to 6 engaged attackers. So of course that is optional. I guess now we're into vehicles, I think. Yep. So we've got rules about creating vehicles and their characteristics and statistics, combat with vehicles, different vehicle combat actions, aim, defensive maneuvers, fly and fire, reload, pilot. I can tell you right now, Heroes and Hardships will certainly appeal to those gamers out there who want a lot more detail to their role playing games. So now it looks like this is magic, I think. Oh, wow, that's pretty wild. I've got a torch for a head. So magic as well as superpowers and different effects. I think superpowers probably fall into various different categories. Light, sonic boom, astral projection, detection, scry, magical shield, magical ward. And these are broken down into categories as well. So we have force. It seems to be quite a few. Mentalism. Just saw another one here. What was it that I just spotted? Nature. Raise dead. Heal. Revive. Exorcism. Then we get into equipment. So we have different technology eras. So we should have different tech levels, I would assume. Or maybe they just call it a technology era. So medieval weapons, axes, bludgeons, hand to hand, pole arms. Oh, Gary Gygax would be disappointed. There's only 3 pole arms. Bows, medieval guns, shields, spears. We get into modern weapons and then futuristic weapons. So it looks as if we might have range bands. Because as an example, we've got laser pistol range 10. Rate of fire 1. Looks like it's got 6 shots. got different armor. Then we get into gear, ammunition, crafting. Holy cow. We've got equipment effects. So we've got armor, bane, blink, flight, breach, poison. And then we get into our adversaries. Heroes and Hardships supports a plethora of enemy types, but there is no way that this book can contain everything that all game masters might need. Therefore, a simple and robust method to create adversaries is available to the game master. So we have arch enemies, equal strength adversaries, other adversaries such as foes, minions. Then we get bestiary. So these are our stat blocks. Pretty large stat blocks, dwarves. So it's all this, all of that. But then again, it is breaking it down by the different power levels. So you wouldn't be utilizing all of this information. Got the elves, goblins, men at arms, manticore, sorcerers, skeletons. I think the best here is what we're going to wrap up with here. A warhorse, zombie, science fiction. Would have liked to have seen a little more artwork in this. I mean, there's a good amount of artwork, but we did go through some sections through like the middle of the book, not a ton of art. All right, so here's our character sheets. So let's see how in depth these character sheets are. So we've got the name, ancestry, career, age, gender, power level. There's all our attributes, skills. Then we got our equipment, weapons, abilities and flaws and traits and things like that. Magic and powers, so that'd be another sheet here. And then here looks like a vehicle. I think this is a vehicle sheet. Gonna wrap up with an index and Kickstarter backers. There we go. This is really interesting. I am intrigued. Now, granted, I will point out that normally I'm more aimed at well, not necessarily rules light, because they do run Call of Cthulhu. Call of Cthulhu's not exactly, a super rules light role playing game, but this looks like this would be something that fans of GURPS would certainly want to take a peek at. Now, as I mentioned, we're going to take a look at the GM's Guide Volume 1. So this is available print and PDF together. It is $24.99, or you can grab just the PDF alone over at DriveThruRPG for $12.99. You can just kind of jump in. Once again, this is Jason Duff. So it looks like this might be a lot of reference work here, possibly. So we got quick references, basics, character creation, combat, magic, equipment, and adversaries. So this might, I was going to say, this might be like optional rules in that. So here it says the GM's Guide Volume 1 is a booklet of, optional rules, game master strategies, and play aids for heroes and hardships. GMs are encouraged to use this book to help enhance their games. Leverage the rules and options contained within to further develop your games so that you can play your way. Oh, look at this. Power level 4. What are you living planets as your characters? So, character creation, career templates, and creating career templates. Combat. So, fatigue rules, non humanoid hit locations, expanded simplified combat. Says simplified combat is mentioned in the Heroes and Hardships core rulebook, but there are several rules that expand upon these rules without overly complicating them. Spellbooks and scrolls. So then we're into adversaries. So here's equipment. So some additional equipment rules, some additional adversary rules as well. So this clocks in at 29 pages, really, because we also have a summary on here. So that is the GM's Guide Volume 1. And of course, we were taking a peek at Heroes and Hardships, the core rulebook from Earl of Fife Games. Of course, I am going to have a review of Heroes and Hardships in the very near future. All right, that is it for this time out. If you like the video, by all means, please give it a quick thumbs up. Subscribe to the Gaming Gang channel if you haven't already. And if you do subscribe, ring that bell because not only will it let you know when I upload videos such as this first look, it'll also inform you when my live stream, the Gaming Gang Dispatch, airs Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday evenings right here on YouTube at 7 p.m. Central. And of course, when you're not watching videos on the Gaming Gang channel, be sure to visit thegaminggang.com for all the latest in tabletop gaming news, reviews, and a whole lot more that you won't find here on the YouTube channel. You know the drill. Get your geek on at thegaminggang.com. Once again, I'm Jeff McAleer. Thank you very much for taking time out to watch this video. And until I see you next time, here's hoping you get to enjoy plenty of great gaming with your gang.